I was like at first, okay, cool. It looks like a Buddha. Well, you know, maybe that's a coincidence. What I did next was I zoomed into the third eye. I got more forensic. I zoomed into the third eye of the Buddhabrot and compared it to the descriptions of the third eye in the ancient tantric texts. Um, and the similarities are striking. And the third eye was just the beginning of it. I then compared the whole chakra system to the Buddhabrot. And for me, there are strong parallels between every single chakra system, every single chakra, and focused areas of the Buddhabrot. So that parallel is there. But then it became apparent to me that lots of ancient art related in some way to the Unus Mundus appeared to echo the Buddhabrot as well.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. It's me again, and we got some really good stuff today. It's so interesting to try to figure out just what is the background from which synchronicity arises. And a lot of times I'll get into discussing the thing itself, just what are the synchronicities, just describing them. A taxonomy is very important. And then try to get into, well, how do we explain them? Well, today we're going to get into the mind of a man who has some really good ideas that are mathematically based and trying to be able to understand the origin of meaningful coincidences, of synchronicities. It's Harry Shirley. Shirley, there's Harry Shirley right there on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. And Dr. Harry Shirley is a researcher exploring the intersection of mathematics, Jungian psychology, and consciousness. His groundbreaking work on the Buddhabrot fractal reveals deep connections between number, matter, and mind. Number, matter, and mind. He's an author and speaker, and his research challenges conventional boundaries in research. Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence, Harry. It's a delight having you here.
Hi, Bernie. It's a real pleasure to be here today. So thank you for inviting me here. It's great to be here.
You're very welcome. And as we were talking about earlier, you've demonstrated a lot of excitement in talking with me about this subject of synchronicity. I wonder if you could tell our audience your reasons for wanting to talk with me on this podcast.
Well, I really wanted to talk to somebody who had dedicated serious time and effort to the phenomenon of synchronicity. And you've dedicated so many years to exploring this phenomenon in a serious sense. So you were one of the first people for me to reach out to discuss my work because um, my work has lots of different facets, but synchronicity is a really important part of it. So I had to reach out to you, of course. Who else?
Who else? Well, I'm glad it's who else turned out to be me as well. Because what you described with the Buddhabrot discovery of yours, or you didn't make it up, and the way you think about all this is it's out there and we're finding it, rather than it's something that we invent. And that discovery invent thing is a conundrum that humanity is stuck with as we try to figure out what actually is real. And one of the most important things in your thinking, in your work, is Jung's idea of the Unus Mundus, the one world. One world, that it's all one, and that means mind and matter are much more interlinked than we're taught in this three-dimensional world of cause and effect in a standard sense. So I wonder if you would tell us what you think, as you've read Jung and you've studied the fractal of Buddhabrot. What is the Unus Mundus, Harry?
So the Unus Mundus is a concept that appears to arise across many cultures and time periods. The name Unus Mundus, though, comes from alchemy. We don't really know who to attribute it to, but Jung talks about the alchemist called Dawn, in reference to the Unus Mundus. But outside of alchemy, we have within Hindu philosophy something called Brahman, which is this a formless, pure consciousness before creation, which is akin to the idea of the Unus Mundus, where psyche and matter are one and the same. There's no differentiation. Or in Chinese philosophy, we might consider Tao as being a similar concept to the Unus Mundus. Again, it often comes down to the idea of an perhaps a formless yet interconnected unity before the emergence of psyche and matter as being two separate and distinct things. And that kind of beyond the ego illusion of separation, that actually everything is one and the same, and that psyche and matter are, in fact, literally one and the same beyond our ego illusion. So, Unus Mundus, Brahman, Tao, there are a million other names for it. It's this unity before creation, if you will.
All one. It's all one. I mean, you get these guys taking LSD and saying the same thing. It's like,
It's very interesting as well how psychedelics come into the discussion as well. And actually it's a trope, right? It's a cliche that your spiritual awakening, whether it's LSD, whether it's going to Tibet, appears to be related to the interconnectedness of everything. Absolutely.
yeah, it's, and I get caught up in the ambiguity of it's all one because it is ambiguous. It's hard for our brains to come up with it. But then I say, so what? And I say, so what in the terms of like, we are on a suicidal course, humanity is, and we are interconnected with each other. It's the interconnections that I then become most interested in, where the unus mundus is the broader idea of interconnectedness, mind and matter, and it's me by myself is the other end of that. But then I'm connected in various degrees. Almost you can think of concentric circles or Russian dolls. There's a kind of a relationship and almost a hierarchical relationship between me and the broadening into the sense of oneness.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. It becomes this topic is a personal experience.
Yeah,
We can experience the phenomenon of the Unus Mundus, or we can experience the symptoms of the Unus Mundus through our improbable experiences, as we started before the recording, discussing how life is full of things that are improbable. Statistically, lots of things in our lives should not happen.
they shouldn't
And
happen.
what Young always did in his life, he whether it was for a paranormal or whether it was things like synchronicity, he was always open to saying, look, this appears to be the case. These things appear to be happening, rather than push them off into the corner and say there must be a rational explanation, and then forget about them. Let's actually embrace them, like you have it in your career, and let's explore them, and that might give us insights as to the nature of reality. Absolutely.
Well, well, one of the fun things about this reality right here on Earth is polarities. So what you just said, and I strongly agree with you, the improbable is common.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. And our relationship to statistics is really, really interesting. Um, and how statistics can be potentially very damaging in our lives. They can make us make the wrong decision. If we go through our lives trying to be overly rational or always taking the most well-trodden path, the path of least risk, and all of these things, how statistics can be so damaging in our lives if taken as reality, because life isn't based on purely statistics. As I said, yes, the improbable is probable.
Well, that's a statistical statement. Um, it's but not the usual way we think about statistics. I
Mm,
mean, one of the fun things for me is uniqueness. Is everybody's unique. Every individual is unique. So we all share uniqueness in common. So unique isn't special. It's just part of being
mm,
here. But then there are various degrees of uniqueness. So you
yeah.
get to be able to play with these ideas. But let's
Mm,
move away from abstraction, which is real, into a story that you told me about a YouTube video that you watched. And I want to hear how you think about that from an Unus Mundus perspective.
yeah. So this story is related to when I first started exploring my Buddhabrot work. Um, and exploring Jung a lot, really getting into the work and not fully understanding what the Buddhabrot was all about, but having a high level of intrigue about the Buddhabrot. I even printed off the Buddhabrot and took it on a plane with me. There was an immediate, I don't know, fascination. So it's related to my work very intimately. But yes, I was watching a YouTube video that was came up as a recommendation um, about a man who was schizophrenic, and he's in this video for about half an hour actually, and I was really captivated by him. I hadn't heard somebody talk about schizophrenia in such an open way before. He was a really charming young man who was, as I say, yeah, very open. He didn't care so much about the taboo nature of what he was talking about. Many schizophrenics wouldn't be so open because they're so worried of judgment. Um, and there's an interesting connection there between schizophrenia and Jungian psychology. Jung learned and Freud learned lots of their concepts through studying schizophrenic patients, because schizophrenia, from a Jungian point of view, is kind of the flooding of the mind with unconscious content. But anyway, with work, I get to travel. Um, and I had to do a workshop in Portland, Oregon. I think this was only my second time in the US. I'd only ever before that, I think, flown via LAX to New Zealand. So I haven't really been to the US ever at all. So yes, I land in Portland for work, and I didn't realize it at the time until I found out that it was Super Bowl weekend. So one of my first times in the US, I've got to join in. I've got to join in. And I wanted to find a real American bar, like you might call it a dive bar, whatever, like the kind of bars that I'd seen in the movies or in TV series. Wanted to go to a bar and drink cheap lager. And so that's exactly what I did in Portland. It would have been a Sunday. Walked into this bar, sat down at the bar. The guy next to me is the guy in the YouTube video. Um, and that's that. We get talking all night. I get his name and I know it's him. And he references a couple of times during our conversation, "Oh, I'm completely nuts." He's referencing his schizophrenia, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, we really hit it off. He's a really great guy, and we're talking about lots of things. Um, but yeah, that was obviously statistically improbable, but it felt deeply meaningful because, as I say, this connection between schizophrenia, the unconscious, and then this Buddhabrot work that I was going through. And at the time, if I had to take meaning from it, I kind of said to myself, it feels like a message from the unconscious saying, hey, I am here and I can make the improbable happen in ways that you can't even imagine. So yeah, that's my synchronicity story.
Well, that's the unconscious make things happen. Uh, that's
Yeah,
very that remains ambiguous and to me. And then what I've done is catalog many stories which fall under the idea of getting where you need to be without knowing how you got there, uh, which I call inner GPS. It's not just human, dogs and cats and birds and elephants and all kinds of people have ways of getting where they need to be without having a GPS in their hands, but in their heads. And here you had energized in your mind this guy who represented a form of how Jung and Freud understood the human mind, particularly Jung, because he was in a psychiatric hospital and people were telling him the same archetypes in
yeah,
different ways. And
right.
it's like this way of thinking of anecdotes make evidence is what I do with synchronicity. What are you thinking about there?
Well, I'm thinking how, for me, the experience overall actually worked to destigmatize schizophrenia for me. He was such a nice guy. He was such a nice guy, and he'd been through hard times, and also, Portland was in a really bad state. You got drug addicts everywhere, so it really worked to create a deep,
Let's make that Portland, Oregon, to be sure. There's one in Maine.
yeah, Portland, Oregon, yeah, yeah. It was
There was a lot
Oh
of
yeah,
drug use.
awful,
Yeah,
awful, really bad. Fentanyl, they have a fentanyl crisis. Um, so for me, it created a lot of empathy and understanding and destigmatized schizophrenia,
yeah,
which yeah, which was again deeply, deeply meaningful.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah, I was just thinking through my relationship to the experience. Yeah.
Good, because that's part of what I like to do with what you're doing here is having you think a little more deeply about what you're describing. So
Mm,
you got to experience now more consciously what Jung had some experience with his
mm,
psychotics. You were able to have extended conversations as he did
yeah.
and be able to explore their minds. And what you came away with in this guy was there's something to this Jungian schizophrenia on other
Yes.
people too, saying they got stuff that is worth paying attention to. Their problem is they get overloaded and their ego development, specifically, we need egos to be able to manage on this
Mm,
planet. Their ego development was not strong enough to be able to manage this onslaught of unconscious and not just their own, but other aspects of human unconsciousness
mm.
emerging through their own minds.
And it also, the early stages of working on my Buddhabrot work, I was questioning my own sanity. Like, am I really going to write a paper about the Buddhabrot? I mean, people are going to be calling me a schizophrenic. People are going to be calling me nuts. And the experience actually said to me, Harry, you're not schizophrenic. This is what schizophrenia can look like. And it's not
Oh,
even so bad, but the experience was really like, um, yeah, kind of made me think, yeah, no, I'm okay here. I'm okay here. Because my work could come across as really schizophrenic. Like this guy's finding cosmic patterns and putting numbers in this ways and talking about synchronicities, and again, it's that stigmatization that we all face when we talk about things like synchronicity, psycho-spiritual things, even psychedelics. Stigmatism is so damaging to intellectual thought, and that comes out of this experience as well.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm
Mm,
glad we're going into this more deeply because
mm,
this meeting in Portland, Oregon, at the dive with cheap lager, and the guy sitting right next to you. I mean, th those experiences are common.
mm,
I mean, you don't know that they're common when it happens like that. But because I'm an anecdote collector, like I
yeah.
collected stamps when I was in high school. These these getting where you need to be without knowing how you got there becomes something that is true. It's really there. I did an experiment once with two people without, and I wrote about it in my book, Life Changing Synchronicities, where I tested my ability to get where I needed to be, where I wanted to be, but just followed my intuition about the timing of
Mm,
getting there. And you can read about it there, but in both instances, I showed up at each of the two people's houses when they came out of the house, at the time they came out of the house. That's what I wanted to be able to time. So it's possible to make that a conscious capacity that
mm,
human beings have. You had put in your mind the intense idea about this guy. He filled you and he provided an answer
mm,
to a need for you.
mm.
Yeah, to confirm you're not crazy
Yeah.
and to give you yet another way of feeling through experience what Jung had already experienced.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it makes me think of, from a Jungian sense, how for Jung, the self worked in a compensatory way. So dreams were a compensation for our waking attitude. And I wonder if synchronicities could potentially work in a similar way. They're they're there to compensate for your waking attitude about something, to teach you that the world as you see it is not quite right. It maybe slightly corrects you, and whether that's a person coming into your life coincidentally or something happening to you, whether it's good or bad. There could potentially be a synchronistic and compensatory nature to the way that things happen, yeah, in our lives. Yeah, it's really, yeah, it's very important to think about that.
Well, I think you're thinking correctly about it, Harry. It's compensatory is an ambiguous term for me. It always has been. And for what you described now, it makes up for what you're missing, is the way I can understand, the way I can understand it. That now you've helped me understand what compensatory means. It's like I need a cane to be able to walk with.
Mm,
That's compensatory, but this is like educational. It's filling in a gap
yeah.
in what Harry needed to get information about,
Mm,
and you did. And I'm suggesting, in the way I think about this, and then we go to the Unus Mundus after this, Harry, um, is that you have an ability, again, this inner GPS that is very active when you're in an ambiguous situation, when you're lost or a new thing or you're in transition, which increase the probability of synchronicities when you're in those transitions. And you had this crazy, I want to be an American on Super Bowl day thinking, which is just great. I mean, you were drawn to, okay, this is a unique day. And this is my first time in the United States and they got the Super Bowl going. That's a low probability day already. You don't even know it. And you're in Portland and they got plenty of dives in Portland, especially when you were there. And, and so you had set yourself up for like a low probability encounter. And I'm suggesting that something in Harry Shirley guided him to where he needed to be. With all the rationality that you have given us, it was still something in your heart,
Mm,
something in your spirit, something that you needed compensation for, that you needed to learn, that drove you to not just go to the bar, but to be sitting next to this guy. I mean, that's one of these beautiful poetic synchronicities that is rich with meaning for those who like to look for it. And
mm,
what I do is look for my own agency in all of this. Like the way you said it, the unconscious arranges this. I think we participate with whatever these other forces are.
mm,
We have to act, we have to decide. That's my view, that we decide and go, and intuition becomes our guide, and there's the guy, and there's the seat right next to you.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, I think during moments of psychological transformation, perhaps moments of life where we're listening to our dreams more, where we're engaging the unconscious even through creative activities, perhaps then synchronicities become another means alongside dreams and visions to act, as you say, act like a GPS, and that there is, yeah, absolutely, there could potentially be there an unconscious drive to actually go somewhere physically. And that relates again to the interplay of psyche and matter. Um, yeah, and it's through
Yeah.
the Unus Mundus that such thing could happen potentially.
And what I call it is the psychosphere. It's right here on Earth rather than something more ambiguous. But that's all part of, we all got our different ideas about how stuff works. So the Buddhabrot, that's what brought us together. The Buddha brought us together. Uh, Somehow this surely is a way of making puns. I don't know, you bring it out in me a little bit more. So the Buddhabrot, let's discuss that. Why is the Buddhabrot so special? And
Mm,
how did you get to it?
mm,
And just tell us about it, because that's
yeah,
your message to the world right now.
yeah. Well, in one sense, the Buddhabrot is just math. It's something to remember. It's something to know is that it is just the Mandelbrot set. The Mandelbrot set is a really simple equation. It's an iterative formula. Many of your audience may have come across the Mandelbrot set before. If anyone's listening, please just search Mandelbrot set. It's this humanoid type shape. The
Let's
Buddhabrot,
let's say fractals.
yeah, it's a fractal.
If you say fractals, that's yet better understood than the
Mm,
Mandelbrot set.
right.
Which
Yeah.
Mandelbrot set is a subset of fractals. Go.
Yeah, it's just simple mathematical formulas that create these really nice shapes. The Mandelbrot set happens to be one special fractal discovered in the 80s. It's an amazing fractal because when you go to the border, you see these mandala type patterns, these beautiful, organic, lifelike, artistic patterns, but it's from a very, very simple formula. Um, Now, if you look at the normal Mandelbrot, it's not actually as interesting because it's got a big black bulb in the middle. And that's the reason why that we have that black bulb is just the way it's being visualized. Um, in the normal Mandelbrot set, we plot the sequences that remain bound. So they're not going off to infinity. So if you imagine you put one number into the Mandelbrot set, 2, and then out of the equation, you get 24. What you do in an iterative equation is then you put 24 in, and let's say you get 196 out. Keep going like that. So that's what we mean by iteration. You go to start again and then get a number out. The normal Mandelbrot set, those sequences, they never go to infinity. Somehow they stay bound. Um, but some sequences do go to infinity. When we visualize the pathways of these sequences to infinity within the normal Mandelbrot set, when we visualize those paths to infinity, we get a visualization called the Buddhabrot. And it's named the Buddhabrot because from pure mathematics, it looks like a meditating Buddha. It also resembles the chakra system, or it might remind us of other deities like Ganesha. And that's it. The Buddhabrot is raw mathematics, just number. It's actually number just from a very, very simple formula. And it's really just another way to visualize the Mandelbrot set. The point I'm trying to make really is the Buddhabrot, from a mathematical sense, isn't really very special. It's not derived from Einstein's equations. It's really simple fractal math. But what it looks like and what it appears to be is not normal. It looks organic, and from a Jungian sense, we'd say it appears to be archetypal. It somehow appears to resemble ancient, recurring patterns throughout history. And a key moment for me when I first saw the Buddhabrot was I was like at first, okay, cool. It looks like a Buddha. Well, maybe that's a coincidence. What I did next was I zoomed into the third eye. I got more forensic. I zoomed into the third eye of the Buddhabrot and compared it to the descriptions of the third eye in the ancient tantric texts. Um, and the similarities are striking. The third eye is described as having two petals with a bindu coming off of the top. Even an ethereal form of Shiva is supposed to be around the third eye, and we can see all of these echoed in the Buddhabrot. And that was a moment where I thought, ha, okay, this seems to be beyond this seems completely improbable. I'm going to look into this further. So that was the moment where I thought there was something more going on here.
Is far out and groovy. I I didn't see that in that YouTube video that had some of your ideas in it, and that video will be under your bio in our uh, production of this video. Um, so the idea that you could zoom in on the third eye and see images that are very much like what others describe in the third eye is gets us to more than coincidence. This gets us to a meaningful
Mm.
coincidence. It gets us to synchronicity. It gets us to like go further into the third eye uh, and see where it takes us. So
Mm.
what you just described to me is like, okay, Harry, let's go deeply into the third eye now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the third eye was just the beginning of it. I then compared the whole chakra system to the Buddhabrot. And for me, there are strong parallels between every single chakra system, every single chakra, and focused areas of the Buddhabrot. So that parallel is there. But then it became apparent to me that lots of ancient art related in some way to the Unus Mundus appeared to echo the Buddhabrot as well. In particular, the Tree of Life motif, which is an archetypal motif we see throughout time and different cultures, appears time and time again to echo the fractal forms within the Buddhabrot. And then finally, I looked at psychedelic art. And that's where things are really locked into place, where we're not just seeing patterns echo the Buddhabrot, we're actually seeing some alignments between psychedelic art pieces and the Buddhabrot with precision, to the point where now my belief is that psychedelic art um, appears to be an attempt to express the Buddhabrot. It appears to be that the Buddhabrot is the blueprint, the defining factor of this very art form. So yeah, it started with the third eye, and now it's become much broader.
The third eye opened your eyes, uh,
Well,
and
yeah.
and then you went down the other chakras. And when you were telling me about the other chakras, did you go deeply into each one to see how each one of them had elements that resembled or paralleled previous descriptions?
Yeah, absolutely. The heart chakra is equally as convincing as the third eye. So the in the ancient tantric texts, the heart chakra is described as being shaped like the kalpatura, or I think I've pronounced that wrong. A type of tree, an Indian symbol. It's described to be that shape, which is a teardrop, which is like this kind of teardrop shape. And if you look at ancient depictions of this Indian tree symbol, it looks precisely like the heart region of the Buddhabrot. There are many other descriptions of the heart chakra, which really tie very closely to the Buddhabrot. And then we can do really very similar things for all of the chakras.
Oh,
But the
oh,
third
oh.
eye and the heart for me are probably the most convincing.
That's more than amazing to me. Um, I wonder if you couldn't get to the crown chakra, could you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the crown chakra is described as having many petals, thousands of petals, and really just I think normally just being circular. And at the top of the Buddha we do have that kind of shape. So yeah, the crown chakra appears to be resembled. If you look at the Buddha it's kind of wearing this fractal crown. So yeah, we can kind of see that reflected, absolutely.
Um, I see why you feel like you're carrying a very strong message to humanity, Harry.
Yeah, it's been quite a hard project to work on, but thankfully I've had my wife kind of grounding me at every stage, so I've had to have her kind of involved in the work to help convince me that I'm not going completely nuts. Um, and but yeah, to keep me kind of to kind of grounded because um otherwise I can't keep going around and telling everybody I've discovered I don't know, the face of God or whatever.
Well,
But yeah,
discovered what? Discovered what, Harry? Discovered what? The face of
well,
God. Try it again.
no, what I would say I've discovered, the way I want to put it is I appear to have discovered the first archetypal form emerging from the void. So Jung thought that numbers were the primordial ordering principles of the mind. Really, what he's talking about there is kind of they're one of the first things. They're one of the first things in creation. They come before the other archetypes. Numbers are there, and before the Buddhabrot, um, there's just random number. So the Buddhabrot is random numbers coming into form. So for me, the Buddhabrot is the first archetypal form, and therefore is related to the archetype of the self. It looks like the archetype of the self, the Buddha, Ganesha, maybe even Pharaoh kings. Um, so the Buddhabrot, yes, it is number. It is just number, but it possesses the rational. logical component of number, but it also possesses an aspect of number that we've forgotten about for a long time now, and that is the symbolic, qualitative aspect of number, the aspect of number that we don't use within science, but we have used since the dawn of civilization. We've always had a relationship with numbers. And it's important to remember numbers were not invented. We didn't invent pi. Numbers, like the Buddhabrot, are something we discovered. And what the Buddhabrot teaches us is that this symbolic, qualitative aspect of number is perhaps more striking and more related to the archetypes, related to the self in such a striking, profound way that we never anticipated before. But it's not just the first archetypal form. It happens to also be this ordering principle of the mind, because that's what the self is. For Jung, the self wasn't actually, the Buddha meditating under a tree. In a more scientific sense, Jung felt that the self was the ordering principle of the mind. He also felt that numbers were the ordering archetypes. So what we have in the Buddhabrot is a mathematical, precise mathematical map of consciousness. What we do with that, how we understand it, I don't yet know, but it appears to be an image of the psyche. And for me, that changes everything. I, I, it's not very good taste to big up your own work and to, say on podcast, I've discovered the secrets to the universe. But I do wonder whether, with future research, there's the potential seed here for one of the most important discoveries in a very long time, potentially. That's what I would say.
I can see why you can feel like you're going crazy, Harry. It's like, am I really finding something here, or am I making it up? Or is it my need to be able to be something special or whatever that gets me to do it? And you got to keep playing back and forth with that and you got your wife to like say, Harry, it's time for dinner, okay? Or just or clean
Yeah.
up that stuff that's over there, okay? It's that the old thing is that before I was enlightened, I cleaned the toilets, and after I was enlightened, I cleaned the toilets. It's like you've got to
Mm.
keep your hands, your body, your feet on the
Yeah.
ground, and it's easy from what you're doing, being as like feeling of being by yourself in
Mm.
this.
Yeah.
Uh, you are alone out there in the cosmos, having discovered a map of the mind, which the Eitz Chaim in the Kabbalah was also supposed to be a map of the universe. And what we mean by mind and universe, the tree of life in the Kabbalah, is all these attempts to understand get a map, which is not the territory of how the thing operates, so we can see it in our three-dimensional limitations. And you're saying, screaming it from the mountaintop in a very British way and very polite, and well, sir, this is the way it appears to me, and I'm not
Yeah.
so sure, but it looks like it is. And it's you like that muted thing that you got to be able to do. And
Yeah, I mean, the only other what I don't know what the other option is. I can't. What do I do? Just stand on the street and say and shout out with a megaphone, I found God. No one's gonna listen, right?
oh yeah, they'll listen enough to take you to some place to have psychiatrists evaluate you.
Exactly.
That's what they'll do.
Exactly. So I need to
And
be cautious.
you're now talking to a psychiatrist. And I get to say what's crazy and what isn't. That's part of what society has allowed me to be able to do.
Mm.
And what I feel is not that this is a crazy idea, but the immensity of the feeling in you is what I get from this, the kind of explosion of excitement and desire to get it out. That's what I'm feeling in you as we talk. And that's problematic for you because you have to keep it modified.
Mm.
And it's good that you speak English in the British way, in the high British way, because that's a language that's tuned to non-expression of emotion for the most part.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's
that's
an interesting point. Yeah. I think it's the only way to communicate it at the minute is that way. I also wanted I hope that the idea can kind of maintain academic integrity. So I guess that's again why I'm not just standing with the megaphone. I want to introduce the idea, and at the minute, like the work isn't statistically, I haven't done a statistical analysis of the overlaps and all of that. So I'm aware of the limitations of the research at this point. But for me, there is something worthy of exploring here, definitely.
clearly, clearly. And are you finding other people who can think like you?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I was in a on a podcast called This Jungian Life. And I was very lucky that Lisa Marciano and Deborah Stewart, they were really liked my work and were very encouraging. So yeah, there are definitely some people who are on the same page as me. But not many. Not many people want to talk about the symbolic aspects of number. But I think it's a really exciting discussion for depth psychology, psychedelic, synchronicity communities to discuss. Let's talk about numbers more, and how they may relate to lots of these things that we're discussing. Yeah.
as we discussed, and we're not going to do it now, a lot of people get number sequences. For me, it was the number
Mm.
23 for a bunch of times. Some people get four, and they're angel numbers. And to be able to make sense out of those numbers, which is very difficult to do because all of them can potentially have meaning, and you can turn them around in different ways. And geometria has been a way of playing with numbers and words.
Mm.
But that's a big challenge. I think the solid ground that you are on is with prime numbers, because those are pretty basic. And then 1 or 0 to 9 are there. They've got meanings that have been around for a long time. Tarot cards is the one reflection of them. But when you say pi and phi, uh, those are more important. Pi being related to circles, that these are out there already, and we just see the relationship and put a number on it, 3.14 going on forever, for what pi means in regard to circles, circumferences, and radii. So that is, for me anyway, a solid way of saying numbers are there before we thought of them. We discover them in the form of a circle, which is an archetypal idea. Now, we'll end this our discussion here, Harry, with what you think Jung would be thinking about the Buddhabrot.
Um, he would relate it to mandalas. He was fascinated with mandalas, and he saw mandalas as something that emerges spontaneously and represented the deep ordering principles of the mind. And what Jung would do, he died in 1961. Fractals weren't formalized until the 70s or 80s. He would have seen fractals as the missing link. Ha! I get it. He would have said mandalas are fractal. Numbers dictate the formation of these fractals. Therefore, numbers are related to the ordering of the mind. Therefore, numbers are related to the self. And then if he saw the Buddhabrot, he may get goosebumps and think, oh my God, the self is real and it is formatted in number. Number not as cold logical constructs, but numbers as being dual. both logical and also deeply, deeply symbolic. He would think of the Buddhabrot as the missing link in lots of his theories related to the ordering of the mind and the self. That's what I think. Um, but who knows? He may reject my work completely.
You never can tell, but I think Jung's up there smiling. Sometimes I think he's hanging around with me sometimes because I'm the only psychiatrist extending the idea of synchronicity and trying to make it more categorical and a little more scientific. Yeah, so sometimes he's hanging around with me. I had a big kind of like arguments with him over the
Yeah.
years, competition, but now we're all doing this because we need to. The world is in not such good shape, and you've got some good ideas. And most striking to me, Harry, is the third eye and the crown chakra and the heart chakra mathematically reflecting in the Buddhabrot what other people in ancient times have described as already existing in them. That's the kind of synchronicity that I can really go with, that I can say, man, this is like, oh gosh, this
Mm.
is like something, especially since my crown chakra is trying to get open these days more than it has been before. And it's like, and I've done the third eye in a bunch of different ways, that these are real phenomenon
Mm.
in human minds and human bodies, and you're able to mathematically describe them, or not you, but they are mathematically describable, and with the Buddhabrot. And the zooming in on the Buddhabrot looks like the next thing to do. You can see the comparisons with psychedelic art and the Ganesh and others, but it's actually taking the thing that looks like a Buddha. It looks like a Buddha meditating. That's where it got its name before you ever ran into it. And then go more deeply into it, almost like you can do with fractals. You keep going through with fractals, you keep seeing the same pattern repeated with the Mandelbrot fractals, but that's not true with this infinite set of the Buddhabrot. It keeps varying.
Yeah.
And that gives that variation gets us to go out into towards the infinity, which may be where we discover how the Unus Mundus operates.
Yeah. Absolutely. It brings us one step closer to the Unus Mundus. Absolutely. The underlying matrix, if you like, for reality. The principle of synchronicity itself perhaps is related to the Buddhabrot somehow. Yeah.
It is a synchronicity.
The Buddhabrot it is a synchronicity
It's,
in my mind.
well, it is. I mean,
It has to be. It
with the
has to
third
be,
eye
yeah.
and the heart thing. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's
bum, bum,
a
bum, bum.
yeah, it is a synchronicity. Yeah.
It, it's it's got multiple synchronicities in it, is the way I then would say it
Yeah.
after we say this.
It's a causal, yeah, connectedness between psyche and matter, therefore is synchronicity. Yeah. Yeah. And it's deeply meaningful, deeply symbolic. Mm.
And with that, Harry Shirley, we come to the end of this delightful, informative, and really deep into your heart. I mean, I have this thing about where I can pick up people's vibration on Zoom, and I really felt a lot of your passion, muted as it must be.
Yeah, very typical British, mute it all. It doesn't mean that it's repressed. It just means that it's muted.
It means, oh, it's there, Harry.
Yeah, yeah.
It's there, and it's a challenge to do something with it, and you are doing something with it. And man, if I can help you somehow as the future evolves, please let me know because there's more to find out. You haven't told me enough yet. There's more
Yeah, there's
as you
more,
keep.
way more to discuss. We haven't got onto time. Time is we've spoken about the Buddhabrot in relation to psyche and matter, and I'm trying to work out how it relates to time, which is also an important component of synchronicity. So yeah, we need to talk again.
We will talk again. Well, Harry,
All right.
thank you for contacting me. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a really great chat, and yeah, look forward to talking again.